Hey, what is up guys? MKBHD here, and welcome to What's on My Phone 2019. See, I've done this sort of thing roughly once a year, and it always tends to be kind of the same as the last year, but this year I'm gonna put a little bit more of the other devices that I use, so it's more of a look at the ecosystem of things that I use somewhat daily right now. And this is right at that perfect time of the year where we're in the lull after the holiday season where I can sort of settle into one device for more than a month at a time. We're about to start to get new phones again, but for the moment, this is what I've chosen to settle into. So you probably noticed I have two phones in front of me. I'm gonna go through them both. I'm gonna start with my Android phone, but I do carry an Android phone of choice and an iPhone of choice, as you know. Those phones are Pixel 3 XL and iPhone XS Max, black, space gray. All right, so this is my probably pretty familiar looking Pixel setup at this point. Like I've said, not a ton changing, but I'll go through the icons and widgets anyway. I'll leave the wallpaper link below, of course. But TickTick, that's my to-do list app. I don't think I'd be nearly as productive without actually writing things down as when I actually write them down. Like if you ask me to do something and I don't write it down and I tell you I'm gonna do it, I'm not gonna do it. I actually have to write it down. But then I have Google Keep, which I see they've called Keep Notes now, but it's just to keep lists of things and to remember what's upcoming. Then there's Instagram. I think we all know what Instagram is. And then there's Google Photos over here, which is a stock photos app for the Pixel. Then Pocket Casts. And this is something I've gotten more into lately, but I've started listening to more podcasts from various creators. There's podcast networks, there's news sites, and all sorts of people do podcasts now, NBA players even. So I use the Pocket Cast app to sort through those, download them, listen to them on flights and car rides and things like that. I use Relay Pro still for Reddit. I use a different Reddit app on the iPhone, but I'll get into that later. Relay Pro is great. That's the Tesla app. I haven't had my car for, at this point, almost 3 months. And there's an update on that coming very soon, but I still have the Tesla app. Lonely, hasn't been opened in a while on my phone. Then there's Spotify. That's just all music. I listen to a lot of music still in the car or whether I'm working out or whatever I'm doing. And I have actually added an MKBHD videos playlist, and I've started linking that below as well. So the video intro music you hear in a lot of videos, you can find it on Spotify. And so I've started adding them to this playlist. So shout out to Spotify. So then the last two in this row, YouTube Studio app, pretty standard stuff. I think you've all seen that before. And Google Maps. I'd be lost without it, but I use Waze, which is on my next page. At the bottom, I always have my text app and the dialer. I have my camera always over there. And part of the reason I've been using the Pixel for all this time, especially over my second favorite phone right now in the Android world, which is the OnePlus 6T, is the camera. The OnePlus is a better performer. It is significantly faster, smoother, doesn't hiccup nearly as much, has way more RAM. It's just more pleasurable to use, but the camera's not as good. And every time I come back and take photos on this Pixel's camera, it reminds me why I really liked it in the first place. So that's gonna be something really difficult for other phones to top in the future, but Pixel's camera is what's keeping me here. Then I have the Play Store, and I also have my Twitter app of choice on Android. It's called Flamingo. It's no longer available for additional users in the Play Store, so it's kind of a useless shout out, but it's one of my favorite Twitter apps of all time. But I don't get notifications through it. I use the official Twitter app for notifications. So that's my sort of weird Twitter situation. Then I'll scroll over, there's my calendar app. I forgot the name of it, but it's really good, so I'll link it below, and it just lets you click on the calendar from up top. And then there's Waze. This is what I use for navigation, so it'll tell you if there's potholes on the road ahead or if there's anything like closed roads or construction. Traffic is really, really good with Waze, so I recommend Waze. Then there's Yahoo Fantasy. I recently dethroned the best team in our league, but I'm only 11-5 in the 16 weeks of the NBA season, so I'm not on top yet. Shout out to Jesse, and I think that's Mike. So good job, Campy. Then I have my Fitness Pal, which is an app basically used to track macros and fitness and calories and things like that. Then SoundCloud, my second favorite music app. Stuff that's not on Spotify, which is very little, I can listen to on SoundCloud. And then GroupMe for all the group chat action. But of course, like any other Android phone, there are plenty of apps that are not on my home screen that are still on my phone. Accuweather is just a great weather app. I think most people know what that does. Aftership is pretty good for just letting you know what happened with your packages, whether they've arrived yet. You can see the titanium red hydrogens that I ordered are on the way. So Android Auto, Audible, Audible is good for audiobooks. I've read at least 3 books in the last year, so that's pretty good. Breather, haven't used that in a while, but I've talked about it before. It lets you rent space in your area if you live in a city where there's a lot of breathers. And calculator, calendar, camera, Chrome, clock, Coinbase. Remember Bitcoin? Good times. Dark Sky. Dark Sky is a really good hyper-local weather app, so it's sort of crowdsourced, and wow, that's a lot of rain or something coming. Awesome. But it's a hyper-local weather app, and it can give you notifications about if it's gonna rain in the next couple of minutes. It'll say, hey, it's gonna start drizzling in 17 minutes and raining hard in 24. I know exactly how long you have to get out of wherever you're at, so I like Dark Sky. Google Fitness, I don't use as much. You may notice I wear an Apple Watch, and I've developed this obsession with closing my rings. It's what a lot of people with Apple Watches end up doing. It's telling me to breathe right now. Headphones. This is the Sony headphones app. So you guys saw that I reviewed the Sony WH-1000XM3s pretty recently. That was with minimal experience with the app, and there's a couple cool features in the app where you can customize what it does, but that's the app on my phone now. Then there's the HealthMate app, which is connected to a digital scale that I have. Literally tells me mostly just how much I weigh. But you guys didn't know how much I weighed, so there's your insight into that. Hashtag gains. Philips Hue. There's a couple Philips Hue lights in here, including that one behind my desk that's been there for years now. Gotta love Philips Hue stuff. I also have the LifeX app because I've been experimenting with those. They talk to Google Home as well. I don't want to have to go through all these. LD is called Lens Distortions. So you can open up a photo in the Lens Distortions app, and then there's a whole bunch of different effects built in that you can play with to adjust how the photo looks. Adds essentially overlays that you can adjust opacity, intensity of, and filters. It's pretty cool. I don't use it that much, but it is useful at what it does. Then I also have Lightroom Mobile that I use even less often than the actual built-in photo editor in Google Photos, but it is good for certain things as well. Then there's the Miros app. That's an app that I got specifically for a smart plug that needed to use that app to talk to it, but then it could turn on and off a holiday tree for the past year, so it worked. There's Nest, there's Pandora. I only have 2 different wallpaper apps that I use regularly. One of them's Papers, and it's very similar to the other one I use, which is called Wally down here at the bottom, W-A-L-L-I. I'm also gonna try to link as many of these apps as possible down below, so the description is gonna be really long, but ideally you can find everything there. Then we're getting down to the end. I have the Photo Blend app, I have Pocket Casts, I have the regular Reddit app, that's good for notifications. I have Slack, I have Resplash. What is Resplash? Oh, it's more wallpapers. I forgot I had a third one. I don't use this one as much. I have the StockX app. This one can be a bit of a problem because if you're into shoes or streetwear, but for me mostly just shoes, then you can just kind of endlessly graze through here and find things that you want. Highly recommended. And then you get to the bottom and there's YouTube, YouTube TV, YouTube Music, YouTube Studio, and Zillow for just perusing real estate. And that's basically it. So that's the apps that are on my Android phone. Again, I don't use all these apps all the time. The ones that are mainly on my home screen are the ones that I most often use, like with most people. But I also have an iPhone, and that's where I'll do a lot of stuff that's just works better on the iPhone. So I'll link again this wallpaper for my iPhone below. But again, just a bunch of apps that are good on the iPhone that aren't necessarily as good on Android. So things like Snapchat, Instagram for Instagram stories. And then there's a bunch of duplicates just because sometimes I find myself using the iPhone a little more. So the camera, there's Google Photos at the top for backing up your photos. There is the actual Photos app, and then there's the calendar, which is good for just telling me the date. I don't actually use the calendar app on the iPhone. It's completely blank, but the icon shows the date, and that's why I keep it there. There's the wallet. The wallet apps on Android are all really finicky and a little, I would say, untrustworthy. Fun fact, if you go to an Apple event, they will actually put a pass in your wallet app that they will scan and let you in with. So they just kind of expect you to use their products. So I have the wallet app. Then Spotify and SoundCloud right next to each other, the App Store, Settings, YouTube, YouTube Studio, Pocket Casts, a lot of duplicates as you can see, a lot of competitors next to each other as well. And then I have Instagram and my TickTick app, which does sync with the TickTick app on my iPad and my Android phone and everything else. I love multi-platform sync. And then in my dock, people thought I was trolling when I put these here, but I have the dialer, I have the Messages app, Safari, and the Google app. And this is gonna give me the same Google cards that are on my Android phone, a little bit slower, not as real time, but I can still trigger Google Assistant from here. I can still open Google Lens and identify things from the camera. It still does all that same stuff. Then of course on the second page, any iPhone user knows you just have folders of junk that you don't open that much. And since you can't move them or hide them anywhere to a drawer, my folders of junk are the Apple folder, the Utilities folder. I have 3 games because I don't really game that much on my phones, but I have Osmos, Asphalt 9, and Color Road. And I have a Google app, which has some Google apps in it, or Google folder. So that's my junk folders at the top. Pocket, Dropbox, Dark Sky again, Venmo again. SkyGuide, in my opinion, SkyGuide is the best AR app, period. And I'm just gonna toss that out there. If you open SkyGuide daytime or night and point it at the sky, it will show you in real time where constellations are, where celestial objects are, where the sun, the moon, the planets, and everything is. And it overlays it with your actual environment, the trees, the buildings, the skyline. It's really cool. Highly recommended. Then the Activity app, which again, if you're ever concerned about closing rings, there's your history of rings being closed or sometimes not closed, but don't pay too much attention to that. And then on the last page, I actually use these more than the middle page. So the Siri Shortcuts app, the Snapseed app for photo editing, Uber, Swing U is a golf app. So for those of you who play golf, there's a bunch of apps that do this, but literally it connects to GPS, and as you walk around the golf course, it'll tell you exactly how far you are from the hole, from whatever hazards you're near, things like that. It's pretty smart. Then there's IGTV. Yeah, I remember that. Then there's the Hasselblad Focus App. In theory, it would be the perfect way to transfer photos from the Hasselblad X1D that I use to my iPhone and then edit them on the iPhone. Unfortunately, it's very, very picky, and usually when I want to use it, it's a crowded Wi-Fi network and it's hard to switch it over. So it could be a lot better. I don't use it much, but I want to use it more. The Lometric Time app for that clock I reviewed a long time ago. And then there is the Zedge app, which is the one wallpaper app that I use on the iPhone. So, my iPad. My beloved iPad Pro. I've found every excuse to use this over a MacBook Pro, for example, for the past couple weeks. Like I've said in these videos, I kind of gave it a rave review. Here's what's on my iPad Pro. So a lot of the same stuff that's been on my iPhone is duplicated, so I'm not gonna say that stuff again, aside from the fact that yes, I have the calendar up there just because it shows the date. But really, I just have 3 pages of apps. I don't even have that many trash folders on here because I use a lot of the stuff on the iPad. First couple rows, I have that Apple folder just to have a bunch of junk in it. Spotify and SoundCloud next to each other, Lightroom, TickTick. But some of the first true iPad apps that I have are games, Golf Battle, which is, it's so stupid. It's literally just a putt-putt game. It's mini golf, but like with your hand. It's one of those super simple, addicting games. And then Earn to Die, which is a game I've played on Android, but it's sort of like a horizontal scroller, similar to Mario, but you're driving a cart with weapons on it and zombies are sort of attacking you, that type of thing. And then Osmos HD, this is another one of those games that just looks amazing on a tablet. And even if it's not the most action-packed thing, the concept of it, I'll leave, like I said, links to these below, but you play through it and it's beautiful. There's a great soundtrack, you got headphones on, you can get really immersed in this game. So I'll recommend Osmos HD. And then just a bunch of apps that I use to get work done on the iPad. Google Keep, Google Drive, Google Docs. Not even that crazy professional apps. I'm not doing any video editing on here, but I do have Lightroom CC on here because I can do photo editing. And then I scroll over and there's some realtor apps. So House for interior design, Realtor.com. I also have Zillow on here. I have a weather app. I found this app called Medley that kind of lets you attempt to make music. I'm not very good at it, so I don't claim to be an expert at that at all, but it's super fun. Netflix. I haven't really used Netflix very much over the years. I made an account a long time ago, never really used it, but as I've been going on a lot of flights lately, I found I've wanted to watch stuff. Podcasts don't really last 6 whole hours usually. So there's some good stuff that I've downloaded. Netflix has been a good source for that. I usually try to use my iPad for as much mobile work as possible. I still hate typing on the iPad. Here's the thing about the iPad. This is the keyboard, and you can't really quite, unless you have huge hands, reach the middle of the iPad Pro keyboard, especially if it's landscape. But the iPad Pro is the only iPad where you can't split the keyboard. So I guess on the smaller iPads, you can do this little gesture and then it splits to the sides and you can type like this. But on an iPad Pro, it won't do that, so you end up being this hunt, peck, type of person. I don't know why. So I do most things like email or things that require a lot of typing to reply out to stuff or writing out like video ideas. I do that on my laptop because I have a real keyboard. I can actually type. But I will not be mad if I find myself stuck with just an iPad Pro and I just have to type like weirdly with my thumbs in that annoying way. I'll get it done. Anyway, that's my iPad. All right, last but not least, the desktop. iMac Pro 2019, fully maxed out. This is where the editing and the production and the magic happens, I guess you could say. But it's also my daily machine. So I'll go through the apps and things on this. So usually it's either in the Launchpad, all the stuff in here, or the dock. A lot of people used to do what's on my dock videos. That was good times. There used to be a lot of people doing what's on my dock videos. So here's what's in my dock. Finder, TickTick, my to-do list app. That's how I live. Then there's Final Cut Pro, the editing suite of choice, Safari, which is now my default web browser. I do also have Chrome, but I do use Safari for the most part on the Mac. Spotify for the desktop, Tweetbot for all that Twitter goodness, the App Store, of course, System Preferences, and the control panel for the Apollo Twin that I currently use for my audio setup. And I keep my desktop pretty clean. There's usually not a whole lot of spare extra icons going on. I usually have just the web browser and Twitter up. I really miss the dual screen setup of the past. Back in those days in 2013 and 2012, I guess, those are the days when I most often used a dual screen setup. And I'm really excited for the modular Mac this year so I can use whatever monitor I want. And I can go back to having two. But for now, for the most part, it's the iMac, so it's just one monitor. You can see the 80 terabyte RAID of attached storage up here. That's the Promise Pegasus over here. That shows up because it's a mounted hard drive, and that's where I have a whole bunch of footage from previous videos and from current projects. But also down here, you can see the Jellyfish as well. Doesn't show up as a mounted drive, but over there back behind me, that's 120 terabytes of hard drives, and that's the current server. That's our network attached storage. It'd be weird if it was attack storage, but it's attached storage. But anyway, that shows up as an additional location. It's called Jellyfish. There's all the same MKBHD stuff, and we have current video projects. And I won't click in there because there's some top secret stuff, but you'll see that very soon. But that's what we use to have multiple people working on the same Final Cut Pro project at the same time. Really impressive stuff. It's called the LumaForge Jellyfish, at least that's what the hardware is called. And I've loved that so far for like the past couple weeks. But yeah, this is the hub. This is obviously where everything has to render. This is where things get uploaded and published. And it's been a workhorse so far. You can go back and watch the iMac Pro review if you have any other questions about that. But that's basically it. Honestly, that's just a lot of what you've seen before in a bunch of other various places, but all in one video. If you have any other questions, I'll hang out in the comments section below and talk through whether it's workflow questions or app questions, or if I forgot a wallpaper or some link you need me to drop below, I'll keep doing that. But that's basically it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.